Hi everyone, assalamu alaikum. I just thought I'd quickly make a video about one of these questions that I received, and a follower wants to share some experiences and give some advice as well. And I just thought it'd be really useful to have a conversation, given that this is a question that comes up again and again in my inbox. So I'm just going to read it out. Hi Aarti, I am originally from London and I moved to a really deprived area of Birmingham after I got married. The reason that my parents agreed to this was because we'd be getting our own place. I want to point out differences. My in-laws are obsessed with housework to the point that it is ridiculous. My husband thinks this too. He has never asked me to do much. Despite earning well, they refuse to have house help, something we have in London despite our parents' home being smaller. My mum wanted to free up time to see relatives, friends, shoppings and for outings. She's never asked my Barbie to do anything. Everyone does their own work. Occasionally, if mum's cooked, my Bobby may load the dishwasher and give a hand around the house. Otherwise, there is a culture of mum and dad taking care of her as if she's her daughter, just like they took care of me. From Pakistan, where I'm from, housework is not an issue. We have lots of cooks and cleaners and there is zero expectation for anyone to do anyone's work. Here I know girls my age who have to wash everyone's laundry, cook meals, and even look after one another's children. It's very different from what I see. My in-laws are from an area where people still wash clothes by hands. In Pakistan, there are no dishwashers and it's considered pride to do all your cleaning yourself. Where I'm from in Pakistan, women admit that they are sick of it. I think she meant from here in London. Where I'm from, women admit that they are sick of it and would rather make more time to see family or do things they enjoy. The point that I want to make is that people making issues about housework stems from habits that are formed back home. I'm not lazy, but I've been made out to be. My dad made it very clear that this rishta only happened because we said so. There's no question of me becoming like them or adopting their ways or becoming their maid. My dad also pointed out stereotypes about people from their area and discussed things to do with housework and asking me to stay at home, to which my in-laws replied that this was up to my husband. My mother-in-law doesn't demand any housework from me anymore, but initially when I lived there, she would do strange things like ask me to clean a floor that was already clean and to clean the bathrooms twice a day. Recently, there have been occasions where she's tried to suggest that I should take over. There are occasions where she suggested that I should take over the house, despite her being in her late 50s and healthy. Okay, so first of all, I think that it's important to point out that everyone's family is different and not everybody from the same area in Pakistan is going to be exactly identical. And it's the same with the UK, that there's loads of stereotypes about people from up north and then people from the south. I find this really, really interesting. I think what we can take away from this is that when you are in the marriage process, in the rishta process, that I think it's silly to make an assumption about a family, to say that this is how you're going to be, unless you've seen them, like you've gone to their house and you've seen them do that and you're worrying and thinking, oh goodness, am I going to have to do that? So I think like asking these questions beforehand is really, really crucial, because if I look at my inbox, there's so many girls who say that there are really silly things demanded of them, things that they never even did at their mum's houses, all to keep the peace. And I think that if you want to do it, you should and you can. But if it's a difference between having a mood off or people around you having a mood off or being really happy, then it's quite obvious that it's not something that you actually want to do. It's something that you're having to do because the relationship becomes conditional and based on serving people. I think it's hard to live in a house and with someone's family and try and go in and just change them. So if they want things done a certain way and you've done a different way all your life, and then you go in and you try and change things, of course there's going to be conflict, especially if your husband thinks that they're right. That's even worse, because he's not going to take your side. So it's worth discussing things like housework, lifestyle, cooking, cleaning, expectations, and have a really, really transparent conversation about what is expected, especially if you're going to be moving into a joint family. I feel like a lot of families aren't like that nowadays, but I could be wrong. And I don't want to make assumptions, but it's always worth asking. It can sound a little bit offensive, but I feel like it's the way that you word things. And it's always important to remember our manners when we are saying this, and not try and say all aunties are like this or all people from your area are like this, because that can be really off-putting. I think it's also worth pointing out that a lot of girls message to say that they got married and it was a love marriage and they knew the guy before and they had a really good understanding, but once they've gotten married and gone into the family home, they realise that there's things that they're being asked to do and they're having to do them, or their husband falls out with them. I think a lot of men don't realise that it's not them who's having to do it, it's the women. But I got a message from somebody a couple of weeks ago to say that she'd got married into a family where her mother-in-law wanted her downstairs at 8 a.m. every day, despite the rest of the family sleeping in until midnight, which I think is really quite silly. And also when you're asking a girl to do everybody's housework in the house, then I think that it's worth having a conversation with the elders in that family to ask them what their perception of women is and why they're asking them to do everything and where this comes from and if it works nowadays. And again, it's probably a conversation for elders to have. Also, to all of those ladies who message saying that their husbands ask them to cook, clean and serve and look after their mothers. I think this is my personal view, I could be wrong, is that I don't think that somebody is going to love you more if you do something for their mum or their dad. I don't think it works that way. I think if someone is going to love you, there shouldn't be a condition put on it, because that doesn't sound like a sincere sort of love. It sounds like, if you do this for me, only then will I treat you the way that you deserve, and if you don't do this, I'll stop talking to you, and she'll stop talking to you, and suddenly the entire family will abandon you and not speak to you anymore. That's not fair, and that's not really representative of treating someone's daughter like your own. It just makes me wonder that, just say that you have a sister who refused to make your mum a cup of tea because she was busy doing something, or she said she'd do it later. Would a guy's mother say that I'm not talking to her now for 3 months or something, or I'm going to ring up all my other children and tell her how disrespectful she is? If that's how you're treating your daughter-in-law, and that's not how you treat your daughters, you're not treating your daughter-in-law like your daughter, you're just pretending that you are. So I mean, I think you have to make it make sense. I just want to say there's plenty of ladies on this platform who send message after message, and I can't always reply, saying that they yearn and they desperately want their own place because they feel as though they won't have that expectation on them to do stupid amounts of housework, or to cook or clean in a certain way, or to be ridiculed about how they made something, or not to be appreciated for their efforts, which is quite sad really, because it is 2021. To have someone repetitively tell you that your food isn't good enough, your cooking isn't good enough, you woke up too late, you don't participate in the household, you don't care about anyone who lives here, it can damage a woman's self-esteem in a number of ways. And sometimes men don't seem to understand because they don't see the bigger picture. I think that when you're looking for a partner, you should always ask what the setup is in the family, whether men do contribute. And sometimes it's not always the case that his dad may contribute, but I'm talking about there's other brothers living there. What are they doing? How much do you do for your mum currently? Or is it the case that you're just going to go in and start doing everything? Because if that's not something that you're going to be happy with, it's something that needs to be put out there pretty early. There's a girl who messaged last week, and she said that she spent 4 years of her marriage cooking, cleaning, serving, entertaining guests, and in the end she split up with her husband, and she felt like nothing that she did was ever good enough. I think from that we can just take away that everybody is replaceable. It's really quite sad, but just because you didn't do some housework in a house, it's not always the end of the world. I don't agree that you should get married and do nothing. No one should just be sat there at home all day long demanding a full-time cleaner and cook. But it needs to be made absolutely clear what you do and don't do. If you're not used to waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning and someone shouting at you from the bottom of the stairs to say come down, that's not something that you should be getting used to after you're married. That hasn't improved the quality of your life. It's not going to add value to your marriage. It's not going to make you happier. In fact, it's probably going to make you resent your husband in the long run. And yes, some girls might say, oh well, if we say that, we'll never get married, because families will be like, oh, this girl isn't family orientated, or she doesn't know how to mix in a family. And no one's ever questioned this before. But rest assured, there are guys out there and there are families out there who are open-minded, who don't expect their daughter-in-laws to do all of their housework, who don't live for controlling somebody else's daughter. They do exist, and they are out there. We live in an era where it shouldn't be shameful to say you don't like to do certain housework. I think there's a difference between saying I don't like doing anything, I just want to sit at home and everyone else should serve me. That makes you just as bad as the people that are expecting it. But if you're like, oh, actually I don't like dusting, I don't do dusting. I think in a marriage there should be a compromise where, okay, if you don't like doing it, I'll do it, or somebody else will do it. You don't have to do something that you don't like doing. Same with I don't cook every single day, or there are girls that come from families where their mums cook every other day, or might just cook once a day, but then they're getting married and being expected to cook lunch, dinner, breakfast, tea, and it's like, whoa, that's a lot. That's something that and then suddenly you start to feel not love. I think living with your in-laws should create an environment of love and wanting to do things for each other. If it's just one person giving, there's not really going to be that foundation built for her to then love your parents back. And if you want your parents to be loved and respected, I think sometimes our elders need to step up a little bit as well and say, I'll do that for her, or I'll get that for her, or I'll go here for her. Not just she does everything and we just sit there and dish out demands, because that doesn't even feel nice. And I absolutely get it. It can feel so isolating. I can imagine that there was a girl who said that her mother-in-law was asking her to wake up in the morning and clean all the cupboards out one morning, and she really wanted to go shopping, and she got upset because she couldn't go out on her day off. and her response was, I don't want to do it. And this caused a massive argument, and she then went and told her other daughter, and she said that she actually went and approached her sister-in-law and said that, look, this is what your mum's asking me to do, like, do you agree? Like, it's like every week, it's relentless. And her response was like, well, I do it for my in-laws, you should do it for yours. So I think that if you're surrounded by people who don't question the system, if you like, or who don't go against their in-laws or their families, and I'm not saying go against in a bad way, but they don't question things, they don't try and change things for what they are, they just put up with it and hope that one day it'll go away. It can feel like a really lonely place, because you always rely on the people who are your age to kind of help you through something, and if you're not getting that, then sometimes it can feel like it's really, really lonely. You know, to all the ladies who say that they have family members who follow me, to the ladies who don't follow me because they say that their in-laws follow me, all I want to say is that if you are a sister-in-law and you're young, you're in your 20s or 30s, or you're the same age as your brother's wife, it does pay to make her life a little bit easier. I feel like it's really different if she's literally doing nothing, then that's a completely different story. But you know, if she's making an effort and everything's being picked on, perhaps, you know, it'll give her peace if you step in and, you know, back her up a little bit. Sometimes elders don't know any different, and they're more prepared to listen to their daughters than they are their daughter-in-laws. My sister-in-law may generally come from a family where she's not used to doing anything. Like, I grew up as an only daughter, alhamdulillah, and there's no point lying, I never did anything before I was married. My mum never really asked me to do any housework. I lended a hand here and there when we had guests. I would set the table, but I never woke up in the morning and scrubbed the house from top to bottom. I don't remember a time when my dad ever asked me to put food in his plate for him. There wasn't a culture of serving my brothers or anything like that. So these are things that I actually discussed with my husband at the time before we got married, to ask what the setup would be. So yeah, if you are a sister-in-law and you go to your prospective Bobby's house and you can see that the setup is completely different, you shouldn't then try and stretch her and bend her over to try and make it to your liking, or in her eyes, try and make her step 10 steps back when her family don't do those things. I think that it's worth noting that every single family is different, and just because she doesn't do things in the way that you want them to be done, it doesn't mean that she's a horrible person and she's not gonna. I don't think the be all and end all is not whether she fits in your family based on how much housework she does. I think sometimes in our culture, women who refuse to do housework are seen as rebellious. So I don't know, if a guy was to go to his mum and say, look mum, I'm engaged to somebody, but she said that she is only going to do housework, like, I don't know, 2 times a week or something. She doesn't cook every day. She earns money, so she's used to eating out. Sometimes this can be perceived as rebellious, or a mum might think, hang on, well, I did it all my life. So I think some aunties need to put themselves in younger girls' shoes and realise that their upbringing was very different to how we're raised. And again, if you've got sister-in-laws living in different parts of the UK, how they're raised and what the gender roles are in their family will be completely different from what they are in yours. And these things need to be talked about as well, that just because we do this in our house doesn't mean someone else is doing it in theirs. I always say that fallouts happen when there is a difference in mindset, mentality, when what you want isn't matching up with what somebody else wants, and that always tends to cause disagreement. I have a daughter, and I don't think I'd ever be having this conversation with anyone, but I personally would never get offended if my younger brother was getting married and his wife-to-be's mum came and said, oh, you're not going to make my daughter do loads of work, are you? And, you know, this isn't the sort of setup where this is going to happen. Or, I mean, I don't think there should be a sense of shamefulness associated with that. Like, why is she standing up for her daughter? Or why are they asking these things? Like, who do they think that they are? Well, that's her daughter. Like, of course she's going to ask. You know, she wants the best for her. And if this setting isn't the best, it can either be changed or things can be compromised. I think people forget that when a couple is newly married, the best thing to do is create an environment which is nurturing for their relationship, not to add to their tensions and their problems, and to make their first years of marriage completely horrible and to the point that they end up hating each other. It's everybody's duty around them to make sure that they are loved and that they're looked after, because that first couple of years is when they build their foundation. And if a girl is constantly being asked to keep other people happy, that's besides her relationship with her husband. I mean, I don't think that you're in the very early days that your husband's going to love you 20 times more because you washed 100 dishes. I think that if he was going to love you, he'd do it anyway. So, like, I know every girl's character is different, and it's easier said than done. Some girls are more assertive in their personality, some are more dominant, some are more shy, some don't think that they could ever say something like that. But I feel like a man who is asking a woman to do loads of housework and to say, serve my mother, serve my father, serve my brother, serve my family, stay at home all the time, you know, roll your sleeves up, cook food 24/7, and you don't want to do it, you should say, I don't want to do it. I think that nothing beats honesty. Like, to say to someone that, look, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do this, 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 do you want to be with me, yes or no? Like, you want me to do this, but I want to do this, we can meet in the middle, but I'm not going to do everything that you want me to do simply because I want to be loved. I want to be loved based on what I do, and these are the things that I do, and I want you to love me for them. I don't want you to change me to the point that I'm not even recognizable by my own family anymore. I think traditionally, like, girls were looked at as from belonging to really good families, or they're really respectable if their mother-in-law said that, oh, I've got 20 guests coming twice a week and I want you to cook 20 dishes. Obviously I'm exaggerating, but if she said, you know, can you do this, and the daughter-in-law said, oh, absolutely, no complaints, I'll do all of it. But then she was going into her room at night and you know, arguing with her husband that your mum said this, or this wasn't good enough, or that wasn't good enough. I think one important thing to note from this lady's question or story she shared is that it is important, if you're looking for a spouse, to make sure that their family and gender roles and everything matches, to some degree matches with yours, because if it doesn't, it can cause a major problem. Like, just think about it. If you are, I don't know, one girl out of 20 girls in their family who all think that what they're doing is completely fine and shouldn't be questioned, you go in there and say, oh, I don't want to do this, and I don't do this, and I don't do that, and they in turn start calling you lazy or disrespectful, it's going to cause a lot of rifts within the family. If you're the sort of girl who is used to going out or eating out once or twice a week, you don't particularly enjoy cooking, you might tidy up your bedroom, you might tidy up things when you see them, you know, as and when, but you're not really the sort of woman to get down on all fours and scrub the floor, or, you know, do something else like that. I think there shouldn't be anything stopping you from saying that that's not something that you do. And I think men who think that women are more marriage worthy when they do that, I think they have to question what they're looking for nowadays, and whether that's what sustains a marriage in the long run. Because really that scrubbing the floor and cooking all those meals isn't to make him happy, it's to make somebody else happy who isn't really a part of the marriage yet. I think when a girl gets married and you throw all these demands at her, you're just disrespecting her. You're showing her that this is what your worth is, and this is what we think of you, and you're going to do all of these things, and if you don't, our son won't speak to you. It's like one of the worst forms of emotional abuse that I can think of. Obviously there is a degree of responsibility. If you live with people who are unwell or disabled, or are in need of some help or company or anything, whatever the situation is, I think when you live in a family, you can't just say, oh, that's got nothing to do with me, I'm just gonna do my own thing. I think if you've, in a sufficient way, if you've said, okay, I've asked how your mum is, and, you know, I don't know, she wants me to make her tea, I made her tea, but now I'm gonna go off and do my own things, that shouldn't be looked down on. Like, why didn't she stay at home and cook all the food, or why didn't she cook on a day that I wanted her to cook? Like, there should be some degree of flexibility. I don't think anyone in the UK, even in Pakistan, treats their own daughter in a way that until you don't cook a meal, you won't be allowed out of the house, because that is really disturbing. And I think you have to ask yourself the question, like, before your son's wife came along, who was doing it? And if it was just his mum and she was waiting for like someone to release her, then that needs to be made clear as well, that, you know, this person does all this work in the house, who's going to do it afterwards? Like, obviously there's an additional person in the house, and, you know, what's her role going to be now, and how is she going to navigate all these tasks, and, you know, is there going to be like an uproar if she tries to question them? Like, I honestly always think that sometimes South Asian women are like left there just arguing about who washed up or who did what housework, and we just can't get past that. Like, there's so many petty arguments about who did this in the house, who did that in the house, she didn't do this, she didn't do that, she did it like this, she didn't do it like that. And there's some people who quite frankly couldn't even care less. Like, they just get on with their day, they're doing their own thing, their lives are peaceful, and they've got the balance right, and that's really how we should be. Anyway, leave your comments below. Do you think that housework is a really big issue nowadays? How do you think we can solve this problem for our young generation who are trying to get married? How can a girl solve the tension and the awkwardness when she doesn't necessarily feel like she wants to do something in a house, but she's being made forced to do it?